Assalamualaikum. I'm Muhammad Said bin Yudasri from the IB for International Business. On behalf of Cross-Cultural Management subject, I will present to you about tips for negotiation in Japanese business culture. So before getting into that, I will tell you about facts in the Japanese culture. First, Japanese culture and traditions are incredibly unique, making it a dream destination for a lot of travelers, myself included. That said, the fact is that Japan can be an intimidating country for first-time visitors, and not just because of the language barrier. Getting to know the ins and outs of local culture is important, no matter where you're traveling, and Japanese culture is no exception. Mm, First, the capital of Japan is Tokyo, and their main religion is Shinto, Buddhism, Christianity. Their currency is in Japanese yen, and as we all already have noted, kimono is their traditional clothing. You also have to take off your shoes when you're in Japan or when you are visiting local shops in Japan, because some place will require that you take off your shoes indoors, especially in a person's home or anywhere there are tatami mats. You obviously would need to take off your shoes off everywhere, but if there's a mat next to the front door, some shoes next to it, that's your cue. Next, you have to bow when greeting. There are all kinds of customs around bowing, but you shouldn't worry about knowing all the particulars. The Japanese generally don't expect foreigners to get it completely right, but as a baseline, tradition is that you should bow when greeting someone out of respect. That can vary from a slight nod of the head to the completely bending down at the waist. The third fact about Japan is you don't tip in Japan, because tipping is always to something to adjust to when you're in a new country, because it seems that everyone is different. In the Japanese culture, it's easy. You don't have to do any quick math or remember specific percentage, because tipping is not customary, not in the traditional restaurants, hotels, or for cabs. You can leave some leftover coins, but tips are expected. You also have to bring the gift of food. You'll notice that at train stations and airports, there are entire shops filled with the plethora of food products. If you want to buy a gift for someone in Japan, that's usually the way to go. Stay away from torchlight magnets and shot glasses. Instead, food items like matcha flavored snacks or mochi are more tradition in Japan. The number 5 and one of the most interesting facts about Japan is you slurp your noodles. In Japanese culture, slurping your noodles is not only customary, it is good manners, the sign that you're enjoying your food. Whether you're drinking soup from a bowl or eating noodles with chopsticks, slurping at a reasonable volume is pretty standard. If you worry about being too loud, you can always take note of the how loudly or quickly everyone else is eating. Number 6, you don't slam taxi doors. When you're taking taxis, you might be surprised to find that the doors close automatically. That's definitely something that takes a little getting used to, but you don't want to shut the door when you get out of the car and accidentally slam it. Number 7, you have to take note that business cards are important in Japan. Handing out and receiving business cards is a much less casual thing in Japan than it is in most Western countries. In Japan, you always hand a business card over between two hands and of course a little bow. Number 8, you have to wear the kimonos the right way. Kimonos might seem like an article of clothing that you can really get wrong. You just put it on, wrap one side in front of the order, and tie. Well, sort of. There is a huge variation in types of kimonos that you can wear, with different styles for formal and casual events, or for married and unmarried women. But like with the tradition of bowing, you don't need to know all of the specifics. Next, I'm going to jump into the do's and don'ts in Japanese business culture. The first is you always have to be on time because the Japanese people are very punctual. You also have to learn about gift giving, which is they always call omiyagi ritual. You have to pay attention to their hierarchy because Japanese culture hierarchy is very hard. You also have to express gratitude and apologize frequently. Um, Next, I will tell you about the don'ts in the Japanese culture. You don't pour your own drink. You don't decline an invitation to socialize. You don't outwardly express negative emotions. And you don't make excuses. Next, I'm going to jump on the tips for negotiation in Japanese business culture. The first tip is you have to give and receive business card using both hands and bow. You also do not jump straight to conclusion because Japanese ways and our ways of doing things is very different. You also don't use slang or accent when talking to the Japanese. You also speak clearly and not too fast of what you are talking about. You also have to make delays when making decisions because unfamiliarity with decision making practices is at the root of many misunderstandings between Japanese and Occidentals. You also have to avoid no or avoidance of no. The next trait of Japanese is another one that the most Occidentals find hard to understand is you have to accept every invitation that the Japanese tell you because saying no is kind of disrespectful in the Japanese culture. Next, I'm going to tell you about bargaining behaviors in Japanese business culture. As a general rule, bargaining is not the done thing in Japanese business culture. Countless plucky tourists have received nothing but blank stares as they try to negotiate with the staff of even the biggest companies in Japan. However, this can lead to the false impression that bargaining never happens in Japan. Before you bargain in the Japanese business culture, you have to take note on the three main point of the Japanese business culture, which is group spirit, value of friendship, and emotional sensitivity. The first is the Japanese prefer to work as members in group rather than individually. By means of value of friendship, friends are called on in Japan to give help. The more good friends man has, the more secure he feels. Friendship is important in Japan, and the Japanese possesses a greater emotional sensitivity than the others. Next, I'm going to jump to the decision making in Japan. To talk about problem solving or decision making within a national environment means examining many complex cultural forces. It means trying to measure the impact of these forces on contemporary life and also coming to grips with changes now taking place. For example, it is broadly taken for granted in the West that problem solving goes hand in hand with the decision making. The decision itself is regarded as a finite act. It is almost if you can isolate it and put it under a microscope and see that it has very definite boundaries and also the characteristics of a particular executive personality. The Japanese will make decision by their tolerance. The Japanese will make risky decision if they feel like it could help the group, company, or country. They also focus on control. Their decision takes time to finalize, and they also use Ringi system, which is it is a bottom-up approach to overcome traditional autocratic decision practice. Next, communication styles in Japanese business culture. The Japanese communication style reflects the value placed on maintaining harmony. The Japanese are non-confrontational and will rarely direct decline requests. Instead, they will reply it is inconvenient or it is under consideration. They do not criticize, insult, put people on the spot or do anything that might cause embarrassment and thus loss of face. When presenting disagreeable facts, they will do so indirectly, making it necessary to read between the lines. For this reason, understanding body language is of paramount importance. In fact, there are books of foreigners that explain and interpret Japanese body language. While many may find it uncomfortable, long pauses are expected during conversation. This usually means that the other person is reflecting on what has been said. It is not necessary to fill the silence with small talk, and you should never interrupt when someone is speaking. Avoid using excessive hand gestures or making quirky facial expressions. The Japanese will cover their mouth or laugh when they are embarrassed. They will smile to maintain self-control. Japanese people also tend to laugh awkwardly when confronted with an uncomfortable situation or when nervous. It is considered polite to say "I'm sorry," "excuse me," or "sumimasen" frequently. Japanese do not consider it rude to ask personal questions such as about a person's material status or to comment on a person's weight. It is important, however, not to ask questions that may cause the respondent to lose face. Like I said, Japanese rely on facial expression, tone of voice, and posture. Staring into another person's eye considered disrespectful in the Japanese business culture. Frowning while someone is speaking is interpreted as a sign of a disagreement. Arigato gozaimashita. Sayonara and thank you for watching my video. That's all from me. Thank you.